We're here at the Laplatte Headwaters Town Forest in Hinesburg, and this is a 301-acre town forest. What we're doing using this grinder, what we call a brontosaurus, to come in here and fell lots of these big pine trees, creating gaps in the canopy, putting dead wood on the ground, which is really important for a lot of other different species, creating this flush of regeneration, and then also actually at the same time facilitating the transition of this forest from this white pine monoculture to a much more diverse, much more complex forest that ultimately is going to be a better resource for bats and for all the wildlife species.
Public lands like these town forests, they may look like they are kind of small and not important on the landscape, but they add an incredible amount of diversity, and really in areas like the Champlain Valley are huge stepping stones that animals can move through the landscape, north and south, east and west, to the mountains, to the lakes, to the rivers. And being able to use habitat stamp money to help make these forests resilient so they can take care of themselves over the long run is a real benefit of using this funding here.
So often when we do management on properties, well, all the time when we do management on properties, there are certain objective or goals that you want to reach. And in this case, we were working in this habitat to enhance bat habitat. You may manage through the lens of one or two, but you really create habitat for a whole suite of species.
So there's a few different types of habitat that bats need. Foraging habitat, where they're foraging for especially insects, and roosting habitat, where they're roosting during the daytime and raising their young. Having good foraging habitat means, for bats, increasing insect abundance and diversity. And we can do that in a few different ways. One is by creating gaps in the canopy, which tend to have higher populations of insects within them because there's a higher temperature. Then as we create those canopy gaps, we also create a diversity of regeneration on the forest floor, which then is going to bring in a more diverse insect populations as they're following those herbaceous plants and shrubs and young trees.
One of the really great things about using habitat stamp money is that we can focus not just on threatened and endangered species like the bats that we worked on here, but we can also focus on creating habitat for common species and keep making sure that we're keeping them common, because we don't want to get to the point where they are threatened and endangered. And I think that's one of the beauties that the habitat stamp allows us to work in all sorts of habitats for all sorts of species.